Hi class. Today I'm going to read Chapter 3, L is for Loser, from the book The Janitor's Son. Do me a favor and help the channel out. Please click like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to this channel. On his first day of 5th grade, Jack had kept a lookout for his dad. He only saw him once, across the crowded cafeteria, leaning on a push broom by the main doorway. He was wearing his usual work clothes, dark green pants and a matching shirt, with his name stitched in red letters on a white patch above the pocket. His dad smiled and waved. Jack barely nodded and then looked away. He ate his lunch in a hurry and left through the side hallway door. During the rest of September, Jack saw his dad once or twice a year. Usually they were both busy, both going somewhere in a hurry. It was like they lived in parallel universe. They passed through the same time and space without ever actually meeting. The arrangement suited Jack just fine. Then on Monday afternoon, the 5th of October, disaster struck. Jack was sitting in math class. Miss Lambert was reviewing how to add fractions with different denominators. 2 seats away in the front row, Lenny Trumbull's stomach had a disagreement with the cafeteria ravioli. The ravioli won. Without warning, Lenny spread his lunch all over the green linoleum floor. Miss Lambert hurried Lenny down to the nurse's office and she sent Rick Arneson to get the janitor. So in other words, he threw up. To escape the smell and avoid the vomito-domino effect, the whole math class was crowded into the back of the room by the open windows. So they're trying to move the other kids away from the smell of vomit, because a lot of times if you smell vomit, then that makes you feel like you have to throw up as well. I'm right here. Jack had gotten there first and practically had his whole head out the farthest window. Fortunately for his sensitive nose, the airflow was coming into the room instead of out of it, so he was smelling fresh air. The breeze was from the direction of downtown, and Jack could smell the fries and hamburgers cooking at the dinner 7 blocks away. Keeping his place by the window, Jack turned slightly and watched the doorway. There were always 1 or 2 other janitors in the building besides his dad. It didn't have to be John. Rick could find someone else. It didn't have to be John. But it was Jack's dad showed up with a bucket, a mop, a plastic bag of red sawdust, and a dustpan and brush. Jack cringed. He quickly ducked behind a knot of girls and turned to look out the window. The rest of the class watched the janitor with horrified fascination. First, John shook out a few cups of sawdust to soak up the liquid. After a minute, he swept the whole soggy mess into the dustpan and took it right out into the hallway. Then he shot some ammonia over the damp spot from a sprayer he pulled from his belt, and then swabbed the entire area down with the fresh mop. The smell was completely gone. Miss Lambert had returned, and from the back of the room she said, "Thanks a lot, John." John Rankin nodded and said, "All in a day's work." Miss Lambert said, "All right, back to your seats, everyone. Show's over." The kids began moving toward their desks. As John the janitor pushed the rolling bucket toward the door, he glanced up and saw Jack. His face broke into a big smile, and then he said it. "Hi, son." Jack mumbled, "Hi," and then looked down, pretending to search for something in his notebook. As his dad walked out into the hallway that Monday afternoon, Jack felt like a giant letter had been branded on his forehead. L for loser. So he's obviously embarrassed about his dad being the janitor. Okay. Jack sat down, his ears burning red. It was Kirk who struck first. Kirk Dorfman was a walking fashion ad. From shoes to cap, he was a billboard of logos and trademarks. All the very latest clothes, all very expensive. Kirk grinned and leaned across the aisle toward Jack. In a voice loud enough for most of the class to hear, he said, "Hey, does Daddy let you push the big broom sometimes, Jackie?" "Oh, I forgot. You have to get a special permit to drive one of those things. Nice outfit he's wearing today. Your dad looks great in green polyester." It had been a long time since Jack had punched anyone. In his mind, an iron first formed, and he could feel it slamming into Kirk's soft, fleshy smirk. Jack could feel the teeth behind the lips giving way as he followed through with his full weight. So sounds like he punched him in the face. But before that could begin action, but before thought could become action, okay, so he didn't punch him, Miss Lambert slipped between the two boys. His eyes flashed, and she said, "Kirk, I'll see you after class." Miss Lambert moved back into the math lesson, and it seemed like things had returned to normal, but they hadn't, not for Jack. Jack sat smoldering through the rest of the class. His jaw ached from gritting his teeth. He ignored Miss Lambert and passed the last 15 minutes, imagining how he'd get back at Kirk. He knew Kirk would never fight him. Jack had a reputation in that department. Just let me get him alone down by the locker room, thought Jack. I'll mop the floor with him. Jack said those words to himself. Jack said those words to himself and immediately got even angrier that he could choose that particular way to describe winning a fight. When class ended, Jack hoped for a clean getaway, but the door clogged him with chatting girls, and the hallway was jammed with seventh graders coming back from their lunch period. Kirk went up to Miss Lambert's desk, and Jack edged toward the door and got in front of Marla Jenkins and Sue Driscoll. He wanted to be far enough away to be able to pretend he couldn't hear what Miss Lambert said to Kirk. It was just a scolding anyway. Stuff about respect for others. Jack was still 10 feet from the doorway when Kirk rejoined his buddy, Luke Carness. Luke was one of Kirk's trendy little group. Luke looked as if he followed Kirk around the Mall of America, taking notes on exactly what Kirk brought and how he put his fashion costumes together. Tall, thin, and long-legged, Luke was always a step or two behind Kirk, always trying to catch up, always trying to impress him. Luke started talking to Kirk, pretending that Jack couldn't hear him. "Hey, Kirk, must take a lot of talent to clean up a bunch of puke, huh? Sure wish I could learn how to do that." Kirk said, "Well, just forget about it, Luke. It's a gift, you know? And you have to go to a special janitor's college and take a course in vomit wiping before you can even try it. Only a few special people ever learned how to do it right, and it's passed on with pride from father to son." Kirk paused. Then, in a voice dripping with sarcasm, he said, "I sure wish my dad was a janitor." "Yeah," said Luke, "me too." Jack kept his eyes straight ahead, his lips pressed together. Marla and Sue giggled as Kirk and Luke finished their little routine, and if Miss Lambert heard what they'd said, she pretended she didn't. Jack finally made it into the hallway. He bolted left toward his locker. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Let me get back in. I had dropped my mouse and I had to pick it up. Okay. Okay, let's start right here. Jack finally made it into the hallway. He bolted left toward his locker. As he got to the corner, he glanced over his shoulder at Kirk and Luke, his eyes flashing with hatred. It was the wrong moment to look backward. John Rankin had just rinsed his mop and refilled the rolling bucket at the utility closet in the fifth grade hall. At that exact moment, Jack was rounding the corner at an angry run. His dad was coming the other way with the bucket. The collision was spectacular. The bucket didn't tip all the way over, but the force of Jack's impact knocked the mop out onto the floor with a clatter that made everyone in the hallway turn and stare. Jack lost his footing in the water that sloshed onto the floor. His math book and papers went flying, and Jack skidded to a stop against the lockers, sitting in a puddle, led by Kirk and Luke. The hallway erupted into laughter and clapping. John rushed over to his son. "You all right, Jack?" He tried to take Jack by the elbow and help him up. Jack jerked his arm away, not even looking at his dad. Ignoring the wet worksheets and his scattered homework papers, Jack scrambled to his feet, grabbed his math book, stepped around his dad, and hurried down the hall. The laughter died out amid the normal sounds of a few hundred kids passing classes. Jack jerked open his locker, grabbed his social studies book, kicked the door shut, and headed downstairs. So he's really embarrassed. Everybody's laughing at him. 6 minutes later, Jack was sitting on a stool in the art room at a work table by himself. He pounded and pushed at the lump of reddish clay in front of him, both fists clenched. Jack stared at the clay, replaying his humiliation again and again. Inside him, a firestorm roared and hissed. It was impossible to keep it in. So all of Jack's churning anger shot straight up through the art room ceiling, a flaming tornado of hurt and embarrassment. It hurled through the halls of the only high school, smacking into lockers, crashing down stairwells, vaporizing doors and windows and walls. And when his anger had reached maximum force and speed, it needed a target. Kirk, a major annoyance, but hardly worth a full attack. Luke, a total dweeb, not even on the radar screen. Like a guided missile packed with deadly resentment, Jack's anger homed in on the ultimate target, the true cause of his problems, and at last it burst into hot crimson fragments above the unsuspecting head of John the janitor. The sizzling chunks of Jack's burning rage stuck to his father like gobs of well-chewed watermelon bubble gum. Wow. So he's not angry at the kids that were laughing at him as much as he is at his dad. Jack is blaming his father, who's working as a janitor to provide food and clothing for him and whatever other basic needs that he has. He's blaming him for his troubles. Wow. So that is really, really deep, and this story is becoming more and more interesting. So if you haven't already, click like and subscribe to my channel. You can share this video with others who you know are struggling to read. And again, any new words that you've learned, please add them to your reading notebook. And go back and watch this video again and see if you can read some of it on your own. Next time, I'll be reading Chapter 4, The Sweet Smell of Victory. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, Lord willing. Bye.